Hi, my name is Justin, aka Ghost Reader, and today I'm going to be doing a book review, and that is a review of the book Europe Against the Jews, 1880 to 1945. This book was written by Gotz Ali. It was published by Metropolitan Books, and you can find it in stores now. Depending on what state you're in, you can either go in person or online in order to get your book. This actually was published earlier in the month. I made a mistake that was published in May, so that's why this review is coming out a bit later. But I did just finish reading it, and yeah, it was actually a pretty informative read. So the book examines anti-Semitism in Europe during the years of 1880 to 1945. 1880, you're seeing like the rise of calls for nations to be created. Nationalism basically is on the rise, and this basically ends in 1945, which is the end of the Second World War. But he does go a little past that to talk about a little bit of the sentiment in Europe after that happened. And so you see, the author talks about the rise of anti-Semitism. I mean, anti-Semitism had been present in Europe for quite a while before this, but the rise in popularity of it as nationalism also rose. So as these new states begin to take formation in the early 20th century, especially after the First World War, you see a lot of drive for people to be within people in their own nation. So Lithuania for Lithuanians, Poland for Polish, and things like that. And because of that, it began to exclude a lot of other people. But you also see this rise of this anti-Jewish sentiment, where basically Jews who in some countries were looked well in many countries, Jews were doing pretty well for themselves, and in those countries, they were seen as obstacles to other people or people who were traditionally part of the national collective, whether they be French or German or Polish or whatnot. Were seen as obstacles for other people on the lower scales moving up. So there were calls to exclude them from places like schools. So to put quotas on them to keep so that more spots would be there, and then for people who actually lived or part of the national collective. This stuff like this happened in France and Romania, excluding Jews from public life, such as limiting and taking their businesses away. And of course, this culminates in the rise of Nazism in Germany, and of course the Holocaust that happened after that. But he goes through how in some countries in Europe, in others, it was mainly the Germans kind of just came in and asked, would you help? And many countries, they found a lot of people who were willing to help, mainly because they were able to involve those people in the crimes. So, move out the Jews, and then you could take their property and give that out to other people. Some people were more than willing to help out with this. In other countries, such as like Denmark and parts in Belgium, there was a lot less. There's a lot less or almost no collaboration with the Nazis, but in other countries there was a lot more. So you see this kind of in a way class warfare, racism, or anti-Semitism going on at play. That basically along the way you see all these many different rules get to be put on the Jews that slowly get people conditioned for them to be eventually deported. And of course, as many of them all knew, that the portion meant that they weren't coming back because they were dead. And then even after the war, when many of these Jews came back, some were even killed, unfortunately, because when they came back, people would they would ask for their property back, come back to their house and find someone else living there, or all their property would be gone. And in some cases, some of them were killed. In other cases, they were turned away and said that they didn't have any of their property, when people could clearly see that the furniture from their own homes were right there. Basically, this book kind of journeys through how basically calls for a national identity, a national collective, social mobility among people in the country, help aid the rise of anti-Semitism, and contributed to people looking at this class of people and saying they don't deserve what they have, we should have that, and being willing to help facilitate that when, say, the Nazis came along and kind of gave them permission to take it further than just putting in laws in place, but actually going as far as murdering them. I learned a lot from this book, especially the interwar years. I knew that anti-Semitism was on the rise in Europe during that time, but I didn't know how bad it really was, especially in places like Ukraine, where hundreds of thousands of people, or at least over 100,000 people actually died in the war period, in pogroms and stuff like that. So I definitely learned a lot about that. It definitely makes you think a lot about where we are moving forward, and how we treat other people. And basically, we have to also always remember that, you know, we all are here on this planet together, and that we need to find ways to live with each other without resorting to violence and seeing other people as less than human. So yeah, that is my review for this book. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. If you're interested in this topic, this is definitely a good book to pick up. So that is the end of this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos from me, please subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at GhostReads28, on Instagram at Justin the Ghost Reader, and on Goodreads. The link to that's down in the description box below. So as always, keep reading and stay safe.